A coronation exists to do exactly one thing: strip away the horses and the choirs and the 1,000 years of gold, and underneath it all, a coronation is a single sentence said out loud. This is legitimate. This belongs to us. This is ours by right. That's the whole point of the ceremony. It's a nation standing up in front of the world and declaring, without a flicker of doubt, that the crown on that head is theirs. So when King Charles was crowned in 2023 and Queen Camilla needed a crown of her own, every eye in the room should have turned to the most famous diamond in the entire royal collection, the Koh-i-Noor. 105 carats, one of the largest cut diamonds on the face of the earth. For generations, the literal centerpiece of the crown jewels, the stone people crossed oceans to see behind glass in the Tower of London. And it wasn't there. Quietly, deliberately, the Koh-i-Noor was left out, swapped for other stones, the Cullinans, already in the collection, perfectly safe, perfectly British. Because putting that one particular diamond on Camilla's head, on live television, in front of an audience of well over 1 billion people, would have handed India, Pakistan, Afghanistan, and Iran a single unifying sentence, 3 words: give it back. The empire's greatest trophy was too hot to wear at the one ceremony designed to celebrate the crown. They own it. It's theirs on paper without question, and they didn't dare show it. And the reason 4 different countries all lay claim to that same stone, and the reason Britain has never once, not one single time, let the ownership question anywhere near a courtroom, is a story of conquest the palace would very much prefer you didn't go and look up. I'm going to show you the exact moment it changed hands, but not yet. Because to understand why a diamond gets benched at a coronation, you first have to understand what the coronation was trying to say. So stay with me. This isn't a story about theft in the crude sense. It's a story about an institution that quietly admitted something at the loudest possible moment by saying nothing at all. Let's start with the contradiction, because there is one, and it sits right at the heart of this. Officially, the position is simple and it is unbothered. The Koh-i-Noor is legally, unambiguously part of the crown jewels, British property, full stop. That's not spin, that's the actual legal status, and I'm not going to pretend otherwise. On paper, the question is closed. But here's the thing about property you're genuinely comfortable owning. You use it, you show it off. You don't hide it in a drawer on the biggest day of your life and hope nobody asks where it went. And this diamond had been worn at coronations before. It sat in the crown of the Queen Mother. It sat in Queen Elizabeth's. It was part of the ritual. Suddenly, for this one, it's set aside. Now, you don't discreetly bench your own property to avoid awkward questions about owning it, unless somewhere, quietly, you already know the questions land. That's the trap. The removal was dressed up as discretion, as tact, as sensitivity to the moment. But discretion and confidence don't usually need to hide in the same drawer. The absence of that diamond on that day spoke louder than its presence ever could have. Silence has a volume. And on Coronation Day, this silence was deafening. So that leaves us with a genuinely uncomfortable choice. And I want you to actually pick a door here, because your answer tells you how you see the whole thing. Door number 1. Britain's ownership is legally valid. It was formally ceded, handed over, under a treaty, signed, sealed, legitimate. Except, look at who signed it. That treaty was agreed by a conquered child ruler, a boy, who was under the direct control of the very power he was ceding to. And once you know that, legally valid starts to sound an awful lot like legally laundered, a conquest with the right paperwork stapled to the front. Door number 2. The removal itself is the confession. If you take the diamond off the crown to avoid the argument, you've quietly conceded that the claim is morally shaky. You're admitting there's an argument to lose. Which means the monarchy is knowingly holding a contested trophy, performing confident ownership absolutely everywhere, except in the 2 places where it might actually get tested, in front of the cameras and in front of a court. So which is it? legally valid but tainted, or morally conceited? And here's why there's no comfortable exit. Both doors corner the institution. It can defend the paperwork, or it can defend the ethics. But that coronation snub suggests loudly that it can't quite stand behind both at the same time. So tell me down in the comments right now, is this legally valid but tainted, or is it morally conceited? Because if it's genuinely rightfully yours, why hide it on the single biggest day you'll ever have? Now let's talk about why this actually matters, why it's not just a piece of jewelry trivia, because the stakes here are enormous and they don't go away. They come back around year after year. India has officially, repeatedly on the record asked for the diamond back. Not a mob, not a hashtag, the government. Formal requests raised again and again across the decades, right up into recent years. Pakistan has asserted its own claim, arguing the stone belongs to the region that is now theirs. Afghanistan traces the diamond through its own history. It did pass through Afghan hands on its long, bloody journey and says it should return there. Iran points to a chapter where it sat with a Persian ruler who carried it off. 4 nations, 4 flags, 1 rock. And notice something, they don't even agree with each other on where it should go, which is precisely the argument Britain leans on to keep it. If the claimants can't settle it among themselves, the reasoning goes, why should we hand it to any one of them? And it stopped being just about the rock. The Koh-i-Noor has become a permanent flashpoint in a much bigger global argument, the reckoning over colonial-era artifacts. It sits in the same conversation as the Elgin marbles that Greece wants back from the British Museum, the Benin bronzes that Nigeria is slowly getting returned. This diamond is the crown jewel of that entire debate, literally. And here's the professional stake for the monarchy, the thing that actually keeps their advisors up at night. The whole survival strategy of a modern royal family is relevant. Staying wanted, staying welcome across a commonwealth made almost entirely of former colonies, and parading a symbol of conquest on live television in front of the exact nations it was taken from, that's not tradition. That's a liability. That's a diplomatic incident with a dress code. So the coronation removal was risk management, cold, sensible, damage-limiting risk management. But look at what risk management admits. You only manage a risk you've decided is real. By taking the diamond off the crown, the palace documented, in the negative, in the empty setting where a stone should have been, that it knows full well that the Koh-i-Noor is a problem. Okay, this is the moment I promised you at the very start. Let's open it. Let's talk about how the diamond actually came to Britain. Because when people hear crown jewels, they picture something grand and clean, a purchase, a gift between kings, a discovery in some far-off mine. This wasn't any of those things. The Koh-i-Noor passed into British hands in the middle of the 19th century in the Punjab, and the person who handed it over was a boy named Duleep Singh, the last Maharaja of the Sikh Empire. And when I say boy, I mean it literally. He was a child. His father was dead. His mother had been taken away from him and imprisoned. The British East India Company had annexed his kingdom, and Duleep Singh was, for all practical purposes, in their custody. A child king under occupation, separated from his mother, surrounded by the power that had just conquered his people. And it was under those conditions, those exact conditions, that he ceded the Koh-i-Noor. It was written into the terms of the settlement after the annexation, the surrender of a boy who had no army left, no father, no mother in the room, and no meaningful power to refuse. Think about what ceded even means when the person doing the ceding is a child in the custody of the people receiving it. There's a word for an agreement like that, and it isn't trade. And then the diamond was shipped to England, and it was presented to Queen Victoria. A trophy of the empire, delivered to the Empress herself. There's a detail here that stays with you. Years later, that same boy grew up in England, largely raised as an English gentleman, and reportedly at one point stood in Victoria's presence again and looked at the diamond that had been his, and understood exactly what had been taken and how. Whatever you make of that scene, it is not the scene of a happy sale. That's the knockout. Sit with it for a second. The origin of this stone is not a sale between equals. It's not a gift freely given. It's not a lucky find. It is a transfer extracted from a child who had lost his father, his mother, and his kingdom by the people who took all three. A little boy signing away the most famous diamond on earth to his conqueror. Now lay that image, that single image of a child handing his crown jewel to the empire that swallowed his country, right next to the phrase, legally part of the crown jewels. And feel how much weight that word, legally, is suddenly being asked to carry. The paperwork is real. I'm not disputing the paperwork. But paperwork signed by a captive child is a strange foundation for a nation's proudest symbol of legitimacy. That's the entire moral case, and it fits in one scene. Quick thing, because this is the moment you're feeling it. If you want the rest of these royal stories told exactly like this, straight, both sides, with the actual history and not the tourist brochure version, do me a favor and subscribe. It genuinely helps this channel more than you'd think. Okay, back to it, because now we have to talk about the institution itself and a pattern you cannot unsee once you've seen it. The pattern is this. The monarchy manages uncomfortable history through silence and staging, rather than ever actually reckoning with it. Watch what it does with the Koh-i-Noor. It doesn't return the diamond. It doesn't stand up and defend the acquisition on the merits, in public, in detail. It just removes the object from view the moment the view gets dangerous, and quietly hopes the moment passes. And that's a choice, because there were only ever three roads here. Road 1, give it back, but that admits the taint, and once you've admitted it for one object, the museum queue forms behind you. Road 2, defend it loudly, argue the case, take it to the world, but that invites the exact argument you can't win cleanly. And Road 3, the one this institution reaches for every single time, don't answer, don't settle, just manage the optics and change the subject. The benched diamond is that reflex, sitting in a display case. It's the whole character of the institution captured in one empty setting on one crown. A refusal to ever let the question be resolved, because resolving it in either direction costs something. So they choose the third thing. They always choose the third thing. Now, to be fair, and I want to be genuinely fair here because this argument does have another side and it deserves an honest hearing, there is a case for keeping it. Let me actually make it properly. The case goes like this. This is heritage. This is history. The stone has been in Britain for well over a century and a half. It sits in the Tower, where millions of people from every country on earth, including India and Pakistan, can walk in and see it, protected, preserved, in public. Repatriation is genuinely complicated. Which of the four claimants would you even give it to? The borders have all changed. It passed through many hands, many rulers, many conquests, long before the British ever touched it. These are real questions, and serious museums and serious governments wrestle with them sincerely. I'm not going to wave that away. But here's where the shared heritage argument runs into a wall. It only works if everybody actually agrees on how the heritage was shared. And you cannot ask the descendants of the colonized to feel warm and custodial about a jewel taken from their child king while his mother sat in a prison cell. The word shared is doing a lot of quiet work in that sentence. Sharing implies both sides had a say. And the entire dispute, the whole thing, is that one side didn't. The heritage frame assumes the very thing it's supposed to prove, that the acquisition was fair. And the acquisition is exactly what's in dispute. Which brings us to the heart of it. The moral of the whole thing, and I'm going to say it as plainly as I can because it deserves to be said plainly. A coronation is the monarchy's ultimate statement that its power and its property are legitimate, settled, and beyond question. That's the function. That's what the gold is for. And at that ceremony, at that exact statement of "this is all rightfully ours," the crown quietly hid the one piece of property whose legitimacy it could not afford to let the world question. Read that back. The symbol of uncontested ownership was benched, specifically to avoid contesting ownership. The confidence the ritual performs and the caution the removal reveals are pointing in opposite directions. A monarchy standing up to proclaim everything here is rightfully ours, while very carefully keeping the least rightful thing off the stage. You don't have to be a lawyer to feel the gap in that. You just have to notice the empty setting where the diamond should have been. So where does that leave Britain, standing there guarding it? Let's actually count who's still in the room on this one, because the number's been shrinking for years. The global mood has turned. Museums across Europe are beginning to send contested artifacts home. Governments are signing agreements to return what was taken. The direction of travel, everywhere, is toward repatriation, and Britain increasingly stands among the last of the old imperial powers still holding the line, still keeping the trophy locked in the tower. India's official requests go unanswered. The claimant nations stay unsatisfied. And the crown defends a possession it wasn't even willing to put on a crown at its own coronation. But the real isolation isn't between countries, it's between generations. Because a younger public, at home in Britain and right across the Commonwealth, increasingly looks at that stone and sees exactly what the claimants see. Not a national treasure, loot with excellent security. And that's not a fringe view anymore. It's becoming the default view of an entire generation that grew up learning the fuller story of the empire, not the flattering half. The monarchy guards the diamond, and it stands a little more alone in guarding it with every year that passes. So here's where we actually land. The diamond stays in the tower. The claims stay unresolved. And that coronation snub is now a permanent, documented chapter in the Koh-i-Noor's story. The moment the crown itself blinked. Not a rumor, not a theory, a recorded fact. They had the chance to wear their most famous jewel at their most important ceremony, and they chose not to. And they can't unchoose it. You can't unbench the diamond. That decision is on the record now, forever, sitting right next to 150 years of history that the palace would rather you didn't read. So let me leave you with the question Britain will never take to a courtroom, because it can't, and it won't, and both of those tell you something. On paper, the Koh-i-Noor is legally part of the crown jewels, and honestly, on paper, that's defensible. I'll grant them the paper, but it was taken from a child king under occupation. 4 nations want it back, and the palace didn't dare put it on a crown on the one day the whole world was watching. So I want your answer below, and be honest with it. If that diamond is truly, rightfully ours, why were we too afraid to wear it? I read the comments on these, and I already know this one's going to split the room right down the middle. And if this got you thinking about what else the crown would rather keep behind glass, there's another story about royal money and where it really comes from. Offshore accounts, a leak that named names, and a very quiet scramble to explain it. The paper trail on that one leads somewhere the palace really didn't want it to go. That thread's waiting for you right here. I'll see you in it.